recording. We'll try and do that on the hour as when we start. And we'll see how we go. So tell me where you're up to on this stuff, George. Is George how you say it?
Yeah, I mean, it's Jorge, but I tell people to call me George because it's just easier here in the US,
Right,
ever since I moved here. So I'm from Puerto Rico originally,
right.
but I moved here when I was very young. And My non-dual path, you could say, is started probably, I want to say like 14, 13 years ago. I had taken a bunch of mushrooms, had a very expansive experience where I think pretty much all the fetters dropped. You know, the the whole sense of self kind of like temporarily fell away. Then it came right back. Um, and then did that a few more times when I was younger and realized, hey, this isn't sticking.
Mm,
And so actually last year I finally did a silent retreat, had an awakening experience, saw that there's really nothing, the me references to nothing,
mhm.
or no thing, right? And so, kind of had a little honeymoon period for about a week or two, um, very non-reactive and slowly
Yep.
but surely you go picked back up um, there was reactivity and there's, a lot of identification. But, it's like comes to the forefront, then it comes back. Like if I'm at home relaxing, it's a little bit more easy to not get caught up in everything. But if I'm at work, it's e really easy to get caught up in, any
Sure.
kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
identification.
Yeah. And what about when you're back with your family? That's when it gets going so easy, eh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh man, actually, yeah, there's been a lot of stuff with family lately, so it's just been fun to kind of like, okay, I should probably just be quiet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. So what was the retreat you went on?
It was Angelo DiLullo. He had a retreat in North Carolina,
Yep.
and it was for a week long silent retreat. Um, and Yeah, that's the one I went on.
Right. Okay. Okay. So did you get much direct exposure to Angelo or any of the other guides there?
Um, I mean, Angelo would speak about twice or three times a day, for a few times, but for the most part, it's just a fully silent
Okay.
retreat. So
Okay. Right. Right. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So you basically haven't had any guiding. There is this. You've got a hold of this idea about what can happen, uh, and tripped into that pretty much straight off yourself, eh?
hmm
Yeah, okay. So there's going to be a lot of cleaning up stuff. So are you an obsessive YouTube watcher?
yeah, big time.
Right.
Pretty much
Okay.
watch all the non-dual teachers and
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. That could end up not so good, or at least
Exactly.
it can be a bit tricky because everybody's got different ideas and different ways of presenting it and so on and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let me say, of course, there's no right way or wrong way. There's no one way either. There's as many ways as you can imagine to get to this stuff. But cleaning up is a thing. So have you heard about the fetters?
Yeah, yeah. I've read through all of them, and I would say probably working on four and five. But at the same time, it's like I'll work on it when I see the reactivity, and if I'm not aware of the reactivity, I don't even sound like
Yeah,
the
of
forefront of
course.
my thing.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. My thoughts about them are don't be in too much of a hurry to go there with them.
Yeah.
Um, they kind of they're really super good with cleaning up stuff after the bulk of stuff is out of the road. They're good at finding the subtle bits that are left, kind of thing. That's a way I would say. I mean, it's not, of course, it's not cut and dried, but it's very easy to get lost in them. It's very easy to start measuring yourself. How far through them am I at the moment, and that kind of stuff, which is kind of takes you right back to seeking, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like
Yeah,
everyone has their own maps. I've realized, and then it's kind of like tiring to even try and be in a map or a path because then it's like there is no
yeah,
path.
that's right.
It's
Yeah,
so conceptual.
yeah.
Um,
So a good indicator of a, a place to look at, to look in, is when you get triggered. You know,
mhm.
so using this concept of getting triggered, I mean, it's pretty obvious what that is, a bit self-explanatory, but somebody says something or something happens, and usually it's because of somebody saying something, but it's not necessarily. You know, somebody cuts in front of you in traffic and you get a rush of emotion, that's what being triggered is. Somebody
Mhm.
says something and you get a rush of emotion, that's what. So every time you get that rush of emotion, it's telling you, there's something here to look at,
Okay.
all right?
Okay.
And
Yeah. I've
now,
had plenty of those, so
oh,
that'll be good to
of
pay
course.
attention to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You'll continue until you don't, you know, but that's it.
Yeah. Right.
So the thing is now there's this great meme I've got that really is great. If you can get a hold of it and remember it and keep it going, keep it alive and so on, it's good value. That is, it's never about what comes up. It's always about what triggers that to come up. Right? So when that bloke cuts in front of you in traffic, it's not about him and it's not even about now.
Mhm.
It's about why you get that emotional rush. What is there in you that triggers that emotional rush? And when we look at that, you can see that we start to cut the foundations of things away. And if you had to deal with everything that triggers you one at a time, you'd just never get through them. They're all there, you see. But in fact, a lot of them will rest on the same foundation, right?
Okay.
So if underneath the bloke cutting in on traffic on you, you get that rush, and the way you might express it in the beginning might be that made me feel unsafe, right? You could have caused
Mm.
an accident, might be the way you'd say it, you know.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I felt unsafe, right? So then you can easily see how feeling unsafe is a foundation for a whole lot of triggers.
I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yep. See, so we've got to go always underneath what comes up, looking at that. And there
Mhm.
are some techniques to do that. And some of the fetish stuff there are good techniques for using that, which is to essentially go looking for the sensation without any judgment about it, without getting sucked into the the content of the the reaction that come up. You know, without you're not going to start wind the window down and start abusing this bloke because that's the content of it all. What you're doing is looking at what's underneath that. And so you're looking at what's in you, that feeling of not being safe or feeling of danger that you got out of it. Or it might not be that. It might be something like, you know, how dare you? You know, I don't let people do that to me. And so it
Yeah.
could be a different kind of emotion again, you know. Um, so whatever the thing that comes up underneath it is, that's what we want to find. And we're not going to find it straight. It's not going to be easily accessible. Well, it's not going to be quickly accessible, you know, because our outrage or whatever it is that we feel that got triggered is our way of avoiding what's underneath there.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we need to kind of get to look at what's going on underneath, and as we get better and better and better at that, these things kind of expose themselves, and simply, this is amazing, simply by seeing them, they dissolve and go away and don't come back. Yeah. And if they do come back, they sometimes they do. Some you'll find that some are particularly sticky. You could say call it stickiness. or they got hooks in them. Some of them just keep on, persisting, even though we've seen them and we've seen what they're about. There's something even deeper underneath that.
Yeah.
So we can keep going down and down and down until we find the original, not the actual details of the event, but we're recognizing that something's there. That's all. And then
Hmm.
once we see that, uh, we can generally change that as well, simply by exposing it to investigation.
Yeah.
And okay, so look, with these groups, um, nothing formal at all. Don't ask permission to talk. If you've got something to say, jump in. Don't have an opinion about whether what you've got to say is good or bad or productive or not or anything else. Just say it. Just get in if you can. The nature of Zoom means that we often overtalk each other, but usually that resolves itself pretty quickly because somebody will go, okay, you go. And then they'll
Mm.
save what they're saying till later, or in my case, they'll forget what they were going to say. Yeah, that was supposed to be funny. Okay. Yeah, so be relaxed and ask questions. Surely you've got a million questions in your head. Um, uh, so authenticity is important. Being straight and honest with yourself. That's really a big one. If you're going to bullshit to yourself, well, that's not so good. But sometimes we do that and we don't even know we're doing that. So others will call you out, and it's
Yeah.
not a case of taking it personally, but a case of thanking them for pointing out something that you missed yourself, or you might have missed yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty dark where you are too, Leonard.
Yeah, it's 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Where are
this
you at?
is
In Germany.
so, George. How do you say that? How do you say it, really?
Yeah, George. You can say George. I mean, it's Jorge, but George.
Jote. See, I can't get that out of the letters. I can only get George out of the letters, but okay. Jote. Jote is in Texas, so he's at the other side of the world. But so he's at the night end of the day, and you're at the morning end of the day. So yeah. So if I go quiet, I'm basically wanting somebody to say something. But if nobody says anything, I'll start picking on people.
So, you, I think it's the mind always wants to kind of conceptualize this, always wants to figure it out. It can't, it won't. And so, but naturally, from my perspective, how I feel that this is going to unwind is just it takes time for the mind to lose its momentum.
Yes.
Um, and so, and from seeing others' experience, it just will naturally, with if as long as you're also doing the inquiry into seeing the reactivity and trying to see the truth of it, a little bit of both, right? There's not much you can do. Like the ego can't really do anything to solve this, but I'm guessing just with time, this will just unwind itself.
Yeah. Okay. It's right, but it's not right at the same time. So yes, it, time time passes while it happens, but it's not. You can wait all you like, and it may or may not change. Um,
Yeah.
so it really is a case of recognizing that we're retraining the brain,
Hmm.
right? So when you took those mushrooms, you
Hmm.
had a right brain experience, right? The
Yeah.
mushrooms have the effect of shutting down the left critical brain and you're just into the wow of everything. You know, what
Hmm.
you've got is just that it's pretty much like a direct experience. You're not experiencing what is pretty normal, which is concept. So most people, or before we woke up, let's put it that way, a lot of the time what we thought was something that was actual wasn't at all actual. It was simply our interpretation of it, what the brain come up with that said it was. And that's
Hmm.
what we related to, which was our interpretation. Well, when you take mushrooms, it's almost like that just gets bypassed and there's no interpretation. Well, the interpretation is undefinable. You know, it's just something that words can't even touch. And so that's what we're doing here. What we're doing is we're taking a lifetime of left brain habit
Hmm.
and changing that. That's just a good story for the moment, but that's kind of describes what goes on. So what you've got to do is you've got to develop new neuronal pathways in the brain, in the right brain, and by you can do it either by just atrophy, allowing the ones in the left brain to get used less and less and less, and thus get weaker and weaker because they're not reinforced, or you can be a bit more active in pruning them as well. That's something that
Hmm.
I can talk about later if you like, as a way of hurrying up that process. Um, but essentially, you can just see how it's kind of like you've got to use those pathways to make them more solid, and you've got to not use them to allow them to atrophy a bit. And so that's where your time comes in with that going on. It's interesting that a lot of the stuff that we do, we're going to let go of as a result of this new perspective on what we call life, uh, on our experience. A lot of that stuff, um, it's just deeply ingrained. The conditioning has just been going on since we were a kid, you know, and so it's pretty strongly embedded.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we've so one way here's what I was going to mention. Here's how you can hurry that process up is by thwarting the process that goes on in the left brain and not allowing it to complete. Right? There's an inclination that once something gets started, we've got to finish it. We all know somebody that talks a lot, and they tell you these stories, and even though you say to them, "Look, you've told me that story before," they can't stop telling you. They've got to keep going until the end. Right? This is pretty common. It's kind of part of us that we do that kind of thing. So once you start to have a left brain um, response to something, it wants to finish it. Right?
Hmm.
Now, in the beginning, you can say, no matter how long it takes, eventually you're going to realize that you were lost in that, right? That emotion, that the content of that thought, you were lost in it, and what you were doing was expressing. You were telling the story of the content with emotion, usually, right? But you're going to realize that that's what was happening simply because we've been having this conversation and because of your experience so far. That realization will turn up sooner or later. And like you said earlier, if it doesn't, well, you won't know about it. So it's not an issue, right?
Yeah.
But if it turns up and you go, oh, oh, yes, yes, I was lost in that, right? Then what you can do is you celebrate the recognition,
Hmm.
right? That moment of reality when you recognize that you were lost, you celebrate that moment by laughing, right? Even if you've got to fake it, you laugh. Doesn't matter. Just fake it. It changes the hormones in your body. You'll drive out stress hormones that came as a result of being triggered, and you'll replace it with feel-good hormones, with the oxytocin and so on, right? But the celebration of that moment of recognition strengthens that moment. It invites it back. It makes it more likely to occur quicker and
Mm.
whatever. And so what will happen is every time you celebrate that, you'll get to the point where you'll even realize that you were about to get lost in something, and you'll just crack up laughing with that one. There'll be no fake laugh there. You'll As soon as you see that, you'll just be laughing like crazy, right? And what that does is, as soon as you realize it, especially if the thing hasn't finished, you abort the process. It doesn't get finished, and that denial of satisfaction helps that pathway atrophy a lot quicker.
Mhm.
And then you move over to, well, what automatically happens is that a kind of a stepping back, a stepping out of, um, and quite a change, a big change in the way you feel will happen as a result of no longer being inside the thought expressing the content. You'll be outside it, watching it happen. It's an objective kind of. Yeah, it's a feeling. Well, you'll know it. You'll get that feeling. You've probably already had it. It's just you never recognise what it was, maybe. And it's
Mhm.
that feeling of, um, isn't this interesting? Look at what's going on. It's almost like you're watching a movie, but you're watching it going on inside yourself.
Yeah.
So that's what we're encouraging, because that's that breaks the old links, the bondage to the old habits.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you'll only need to do that. Be active as much, but be relaxed about it. When I say be active, I mean I'm telling a lie in a lot of ways. I'm saying go and do this. At the same time, I know that we don't do anything. Things happen.
Yeah. Approach it in a curious way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's a really good exercise. A few weeks of that will change your life.
Perfect. I could use it at work. I get triggered all the time.
Mm. And so also, yes, this is the fine tuning bit. At no time when you get triggered is it a bad thing,
Hmm.
right? And you never, if you catch yourself saying, well, I shouldn't have got triggered, just give yourself a good slap, a good hard whack across the face. Every time you use that word should or shouldn't, do that.
Hmm.
And because when you get triggered, it is the opportunity, it is an invitation for you to look at what's going on underneath. Right. And as we work through these, they'll get less and less, further and further apart. And so next thing you know, we find ourselves feeling pretty good, even when shit does turn up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You're looking perplexed there, Ray.
I'm not perplexed.
Okay,
I'm
good.
just
Yeah, you've heard
I
it all
just
before, haven't you?
well, I have a lot of it is familiar, but it's good. I'm not yeah. I don't know. I'm not perplexed. I'm trying to get my positioning right. Uh, that's it.
Uh, it was my interpretation of the look on your face. Your brow was furrowed, and you just looked a bit puzzled there.
I've got a resting puzzlement face. That's
Oh,
unfortunately
I like that.
that's me in
Yeah.
trouble. Yeah. Yeah. Um, but I don't know. I mean, I don't really have too much to report. I think, things are going well, I suppose, for me. Yeah. I don't really know. Was there yeah, that's it. I don't know.
I'm getting a double message from you here.
Okay. What is it?
Well, that things are going okay, but is something, I don't
I'm
know.
kind of just thinking through if there's anything that, you know, we've talked before about sort of my relationship with my wife and my marriage. And I don't know. I feel like I'm just a little bit more relaxed about most things lately, the last couple of days. And so my wife is ill. She's having, she's sick. She's not feeling well. And so I'm kind of handling the boys on my own. And, it's fine. And I think it was a little bit easier. It's easier for me to be like compassionate towards my wife and just being like, I know that you're really not feeling well. And like, I'm trying to be supportive how I can be. Well, at the same time, like, I think in the past, there's some aspect of me being like, I'm helping you out. And I think she's extremely sensitive to that. I think that when she picks up on that, um,
Yep.
it makes her feel inadequate. And I think that, or
Yeah.
inadequate or guilty in some way. And
Yeah, that's an interesting one because people don't realize that they do pick up on body language and facial expressions and tone of voice and all of those not obvious things. And sometimes, like me with my saying you look perplexed, it can be wrong interpretation. It can be not what's actually going on, but people do pick up on that stuff. So when you're more relaxed in this situation, you will find that other people will be affected by it. Now, it'll be subtle in the beginning, especially. It'll be very subtle. So it'll be hard to actually define it or see exactly how it's happening. But you can be sure, even if it's a very small amount of being more relaxed, that other people will be responding to that too.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think that, a lot of my interaction with my wife is even, it's by text. It's not like, so she's not seeing my face, she's not really seeing my body language, but I think even the way that I text is, well, I don't know. Hopefully it's better. I have no actual idea,
Yeah,
sort of how
of
she's
course.
receiving it. But I know
Yeah,
that I feel a little better about it, and I think that she does too.
right.
And
Right. Okay, go
what was
on.
I gonna say? Um, oh yeah, I mean, all of this is who knows? Like it's been such a short span of time for me, and I've also been kind of sleep deprived on and off. And so who honestly knows?
Yeah,
It's such a
of
small sample
course.
size.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that sleep deprived because of work? You're doing shift work?
No, it sleep deprivation lately has just been more kid related. The kids will wake up and they'll come find me and they'll be like,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm having a nosebleed and my world is ending. And I'll have to be like, all right, let's get out of bed and deal with this.
yeah. Okay. Uh,
But a little bit, sometimes it's also just not sleeping super well and kind of waking up and either meditating or, you know, whatever. Been, it's been weird. I think there have been a couple of times also that, the issues with my wife are kind of stressing me out. And so I think there's like one night where I was like staying up late into the night being like, I need to think of the perfect thing to say. Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
and I need to like
let's
figure out a way to get her to talk to me.
reframe what you just said. One of the things you said in a way that's you'll know it, and that is it's not the situation that's stressing you out. It's the stories that you tell about it
Hmm.
to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, I mean, of course, I have a hard time. I don't even know if I'm capable of separating the two, right? Because the situation, my only ability to perceive the situation is through the story, like
Yeah, of
a
course.
lot of
Yes.
the
Yeah.
and
So that
really
technique that I mentioned to you, well, I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but I used to have a technique that worked really well for me, which was when I told myself a story, I'd append to it at the end, I'd append or not, or
mm,
a version of or not. Right. So I'd say, yeah, she's going through this or thinking this or whatever, yes, yeah, or not. And so what it did is it just opened up every story to the possibility that it wasn't accurate, that it could be different. So
mm,
it's, stories are good, stories are stories, and in a lot of cases, stories are really only about other stories. So it's really a case of just having that space to kind of see them better. So when you get stressed and you can't sleep, it's like you're giving yourself a hit at least once every 90 seconds to keep things going. So the melatonin that should be putting you to sleep is kept at bay by some other hormone. And every time you tell yourself a particular story, you're getting a hit of that other hormone that's keeping you awake, cortisol maybe, um, or whatever it is that's there. And those things, when you do, if you get a flush of hormone into your body, it doesn't last that long. 90 seconds, and it's pretty well faded out. So when you're stressed for half an hour, you've told yourself 25 stories to keep it going. You keep giving yourself that hit, pressing that morphine button or whatever it is.
yeah. Except it's like the opposite. It's
Yeah,
like it gives you pain and not relief.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Give yourself another pain shot.
Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy.
It was
Yeah.
totally, doesn't make any sense, but
But we do it. We just do
I
it.
can't help it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. Well, it's not a matter of helping it. So yeah, the whole idea of I can't help it rests on the idea that you should be able to help it, which rests on the idea that
Mm,
you've got control. And they're all bullshit. You know that.
mhm.
Yeah, so isn't it funny how you can know that there's no control, but at the same time you still believe that you can help it,
Yeah.
or that you can't help it. If you believe you can't help it, you believe you should be able to help it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, that all totally tracks for me. And I think, the nights when it has been like that, I've stressed out about it less and been more just like, I'm gonna get out of bed and like sit and meditate for, 15 minutes or something like that. And, it almost it yeah. Other I think the rest of the time I'd be like laying in bed trying to, being like, oh no, this is bad. And now I'm just like, this is what is happening and I can't help it. So, I
Yeah,
don't know.
there's a crazy one. If you can't sleep, one of the best things that you could do is lie in bed and say, "I'm going to stay awake. I'm not going to go to sleep," and try really hard to
Mhm.
stay awake. I'll guarantee you won't last
Hmm.
more than 5 minutes.
Hmm. Well, I may have to give that one a try. I don't think I've tried that one.
It'll be
Um,
interesting. Give me some feedback on that. Uh,
but I'll give it a shot. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's been all right. I think in America we're having an election right now.
oh, we're having it here
You guys
too. Don't
may.
worry. Yeah, it's on
Oh,
every
really?
television station. We're seeing the whole thing. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and
Well, I
it's not
haven't
looking real
really
good at the
tuned
moment.
in.
Yeah,
No, it's not, but I think that you know, it's just one of those things that yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people in my life are really stressed out about it. And
yeah,
for me, I'm like, I've done what I can do, like I
yeah,
still maybe it's because I'm a bit of an optimist that I still think it's gonna turn, I still think it's gonna turn out well. And I almost like don't want to bother myself with like watching the little graphics on the screen
yeah,
change.
yeah. Better
Like I'll just
wait
wake
till
up
it's done. Yeah,
tomorrow. yeah, and if like, disaster, then we'll deal with it then.
Yep.
But I think it's going to turn out okay. I
Well,
don't know.
we can cross our fingers, eh? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
interesting that.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, I bet money on this election, and I'm pretty sure I lost it.
Well, well, we'll find out. That's an interesting thing to do. Like, it's kind of like a hedge. Did you vote for the candidate, or did you bet money on the candidate you wanted to win, or on the one that you wanted to
The one I
lose?
wanted to win.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I don't know. Maybe it would have been better to hedge and be like, okay, well, if my candidate loses, at least I get money. At least I
It
No.
wouldn't
was a
bet.
triple payout. I had to
Yeah.
take the risk.
Okay, well, yeah.
Mm.
I had to do it for
Mm,
fun. It was throwaway money anyways. It's like $30, so
fair enough. Fair enough. Um,
So one of
yeah.
the really relevant stuff for this is, isn't it how readily we have a reaction to it? It's up front and center, isn't it? It's on all the television stations. It's on everybody's lips. It's like here it is, such a big thing, that it could be bigger than climate change. Who knows? Um, and so what I say is we have to thank it for being the way it is, for stimulating what it does in us, for giving us the opportunity to look at our beliefs. A lot of beliefs travel around under the radar. We don't even know we've got them, but we still respond according to them, but we don't even know they're there until we dig them out and have a look at them. And this kind of stuff helps us dig things out big time.
Mm. That makes me wonder. It's like, am I bypassing? Because I honestly, like right now, I'm like, I'm just not going to worry about this.
No,
But
no, well,
I,
that's
but
good.
that's
Yeah.
part. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Part of me feels like if, the worst comes to pass, when that happens, I'll have plenty to work with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But for right now, it's like there's no use getting into it. Like it
Yep.
it is the stuff of thought, I guess, to be like, oh no, like
Mm.
it's all out of your control or all out of my control at the moment. So
Yep, yeah. No, I think that's a good attitude. Yeah.
okay, well, it's the one I've got. So
Yep, yep.
it makes me happy. I'll stick with it.
Yeah. This thing's been for you, hasn't it?
Um, Actually, quite fine. I mean, recently I'm being quite content and calm, and there's not a lot of mind activity. I mean, compared to before. Um, However, yesterday, I don't really know how that happened, but I mean, I worked for 8 hours, and yesterday I was very exhausted. And there were things that were stressing me somehow. And yeah, I don't really understand how that happened. But yeah, I guess it has to do a bit with yeah, I have to prepare people for an exam. And so we have to practice speaking and writing because those are the things that are most difficult. Um, and yeah, most people don't really have a chance to ever pass this exam.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. So did this triggering happen when you got news of the exam?
mm, mm, no, I mean, it's just like in general, like before, I was really clear about it just being a job and about me doing my best for those people. But yesterday, for example, I explained to them, okay, I'm a language teacher, so this is a bit similar to fitness trainer, you know,
Mm,
like
mm.
you have a fitness trainer, and this trainer can assist you to train your muscles,
Yeah,
and
but he
the
can't build them up
trainer
for you,
will
can he?
tell you, yes, of course. And then I told them a lot of times, I mean, I gave them all the advice how to learn at home, how to train their language skills, like
Yeah,
over one
yeah.
year. I mean, many people don't really have experience how to learn. They have to learn, you know.
Yes, yes,
So
yes. Yeah.
I gave them all the resources that they could need to learn independently,
Mhm.
because it won't help to just go to the classes and sit there and listen or
Yes.
not
Expect
listen.
to take it
So
in. Yeah.
yeah, but then I also understand that they are in a life situation where that it's not so easy to be concentrated or to be fully
Yeah, yeah,
motivated.
yeah.
But now people are like super stressed because they
They got the exam.
understand that they will not be able to pass the exam. And then yeah, maybe this, I feel their stress, and then I have to tell them kind of, yeah, I'm sorry, I mean, it's too late now, you know. So it's,
Right.
I mean, I don't say that because I don't want to demotivate them, but
Sure. Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
like a bit unrealistic, like to yeah. And then it's really like I mean, there are people who are not even able to say my name is, you know. So
Right. Yeah.
usually, e- I mean, I know people who don't speak German, but they know this sentence just from having traveled to Germany
Yes,
once or
yes.
something.
Yeah, but the ones who haven't
So
got even that have obviously not put much effort in or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So does it reflect on you if they fail? Do you feel
Mm,
something if they don't pass? Have you not done your job properly, or do you feel like you've been inadequate or anything like
no,
that? No?
but
I mean, obviously you want them to pass, but you
um,
don't feel responsible if they don't.
mm, yeah, I have to say that there is one moment which is triggering me a bit, like, and that's okay. During those 1.5 years that I'm working there now, I noticed, okay, I have to lower my expectations, and I have to understand that most of those people didn't study, for example, they didn't learn any foreign language. So
Mm.
I have to explain it in a very, very simple way. But then sometimes I have to really go down to a level, like, for example, there's a dialogue, and one person ask, like, where do you live? And then the other person will answer, you live in Berlin or something like that, you know. So
Mm.
I have to really go down to this explaining, okay, now this is a dialogue. So if one person says you, the other person can't answer with you because
Yes.
that's a
Yeah.
question, something like
Yeah.
that. Like
Yeah. Yeah. They're going to change you
it's
to
about the
I or
perspective.
whatever. Yeah.
And then I really have to admit, after having explained it like 20 times, and then it doesn't work, it's like really a bit like so much energy put in this. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not that real. I mean, it takes a bit of energy for me to always go down to the
Yeah. Yeah.
lowest
Yeah.
level in
Sure. Yeah.
order
Yeah.
to make this
So these are not
understandable
voluntary
for
students, are they?
everyone. Hmm?
They're not voluntary students.
No, that's the problem. Yeah, but on the other hand, I mean, the comparison with a fitness trainer, I mean, to make this a bit more,
A
yeah,
better analogy.
yeah, it's not only mm, fitness training just for fun. Let's
Hmm.
say the person has to learn to swim in order to survive. I mean, without German, they won't really. They yeah. I mean, of course, they will be able to survive, but it's also like using their
Yeah. I
opportunities
get
in
it.
this
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
country. So,
So
I
is
mean,
this some kind of an immigration requirement, is it?
yes, I mean, without that certificate, nobody will give you any job. So, I
Right.
mean, in the end, there is still the um, social insurance, but thing. But I don't really know because in Europe, it's getting more right wing, and people are starting to be more strict with immigrants. For example, in Denmark, um, now they say, okay, if you don't meet those requirements, I mean, if you
Yep.
don't speak the language properly, then you have to do a cleaning job. And if you refuse to do that, we will, yeah, not accept you here anymore.
Right.
I
And
don't
so
know
that
if it
that's
will
not enough
happen in Germany.
motivation for some of them. You tell them at the beginning
Uh,
of the course if they fail, they'll end up a cleaner.
yeah, it seems like people don't really understand the urge, and that's, yeah, I mean, it's not my business anyway, but it's a bit difficult
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I
to
get it. I
say
get
like,
it. Yeah.
oh, I don't care, then
Yeah.
if you don't want to learn German, so
I just had this kind of weird thought that if Trump gets in, you might be teaching Mexicans.
yeah, uh,
Yeah. Or whatever. Yeah, that's a tricky one, isn't it? So how of course you relate to all of that is interesting, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, but that's like a idealistic fantasy. I would say at first people would need a psychologist, maybe, because I think a lot of people are overwhelmed by their life situation
Oh, of
and
course. Yeah.
drowning in depression, and it's not the best, uh, yeah,
Yep, yep. And
situation
of
in
course,
which you could
and if they're
learn with a
refugees,
lot of
they've even got
motivation
more.
language that is that difficult.
Mm,
I mean,
mm.
also if it's like the first foreign language you have to learn. So
And they're not motivated, so they're not even going to get an app on their phone that will teach them another language. There's a few of them around, uh,
mm,
but they're not motivated to do that.
no, I mean, I really try to give all the advice and all the hints and all the apps that there are,
Mm,
but people just won't do it. So
mm.
I mean, I also sometimes I'm able to just see it like, okay, I'm offering something that nobody wants, or not just so many people want to know about. But I mean, anyway, I mean, of course, it's not about me. Um, and I try to see it as, yeah, at least people come out of their homes, and I mean they are given like shitty flats that in like outside the city where it's not that nice to live anyway. So at least they have some kind of daily rhythm, and they go somewhere where there are some activities that are maybe a bit fun, or they meet other people.
Mm. So how often
So
do they come to your classes? Is that every day of the week or one day a week or what?
yeah, it's every day.
Every day, right? Okay. Mm.
And then it's like, okay, but I have to admit, I mean, yesterday I was really like, okay, we are meeting 4 days a week for 1 year now, and you are not able to say my name is. So it's like, yes, yeah, it's
Mm.
just like, it's not a reproach. It's just like, it's a mystery for me how that is possible.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
even if you're not interested in it, I mean, you will grasp at least something maybe, but yeah.
It seems to me that they are more reacting to the situation than to the language itself.
Hmm.
They really don't want to be here.
Yeah.
It's hard, especially if they're refugees. It's hard to imagine the trauma that they've brought with them. You know, that could be just all consuming, and there's nothing left to
Hmm.
be able to learn another
Yeah.
language, maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also, I don't want to blame them actually. I would rather blame the system that we have here, because the requirements are too high. And also, there are some things that I required that I find like really absurd. I mean, for example, why do you have to learn to write a letter to a washing machine shop because your washing machine is broken? You know, this kind of things. So that's like what is tested in the exam as well, like super stupid letters that I haven't ever written in my whole life, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like,
But they have to write that in German as well, I presume.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's
So they've not only got to learn the spoken language, they've got to learn the written language.
yeah. Hmm.
Mm. And do they come from a place where they use the same letters as the German language, or do they use a Arabic kind of script or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, most people come from Ukraine, which is a different alphabet, but it's not that different, you know.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah.
and of course, for the people with Arabic, I mean, imagine to write a letter in Arabic. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They write from right to left and not left to right, and they
yeah.
use entirely
I
different
mean,
everything. Yeah.
if I had to learn that, I mean, and I imagined that I'm in the middle of a crisis or a worrying for my family, for example,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
then I don't really understand um, why they don't let people work, and then people have a motivation to learn the language.
Absolutely. And they'll learn on
And
the job quite a lot of stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, why are the requirements so high? I mean, anyway, most Germans speak English, so why is it so important to learn German?
Mm.
I don't really understand
It
that.
would be more practical for them to learn English,
Hmm.
especially if they're going to move on to another English speaking country. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I'm
I,
interested when you said you're more inclined to blame the system. I get that. I
mm,
certainly was thinking, oh, there's got to be a better way to do this. But um, when you said blame, do you mean blame like that? Is there some sense of uh, I don't know another word for blame? Is there a sense of blame?
mm, no, I was just, I mean, of course, I'm wondering what is the thing that is stressing me. And
Mm.
then I think what is stressing me is that I have to take the role of fitting people into this system that it's not really made for
Okay,
them.
yes, right. You've got to herd cats.
So, anyway, I'm not a fan of exams. I don't think that they represent the skills of a person because,
No.
and then I mean, one person is quicker, the other one needs more time.
Yep.
Um,
Everybody's different. Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
some people are stressed when they have to speak in front of, uh, yeah,
Yeah.
other people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, I think most exams only examine memory, don't they?
mm,
Depends on it on the web. Yeah. Yeah. So what stresses you is really what we're on about here. What stresses you in this situation, and that is for sure that there is some belief that things
mm,
could be different.
mm,
Oh, no, this is sounding familiar. So, for the idea that something could be different
mhm.
rests on the idea that something that you are able to make something different, that of control, the idea of control.
Yeah, no, I'm not because I can't change the system. I mean,
Right. Yeah, yeah. So it's not really a blame that you're talking about, rather that it's a description of where you see the inadequacies are. Would that be more accurate?
yes, and maybe even a bit more because it's difficult for me to accept that. I mean, it's
Ah,
difficult for
now,
me
now
to
there you go
accept.
again. So accepting that means that you think it could be different.
Yes, maybe it could be different, but I can't change it myself. So,
No, no.
yeah.
Well, that makes it like it should be different, which still rests on it could be different.
Mm, mm. Yeah, there is still a bit of this, I guess, that there is the thought that it should be different.
Hmm. So is there a difference between recognizing where or how it could be different, whilst at the same time recognizing that that's not likely to be the case simply because of the momentum, the way the people who set it up aren't going to change it. So that is the way it's going to be. But it could be better if,
No, and I guess if it's going to change, probably it's going to change to worst. I
oh,
mean, that's
yeah,
nothing that I could know, but I mean, if I follow the politics in Germany, maybe it's not going to get any better. So,
yeah, sure, yeah, yeah. Well, it does seem like the politics is moving further right, and if you get to the extreme right, they don't
mm,
want immigrants there, so they're going to set them up to fail, aren't they? Who knows? Maybe. Yeah,
mm,
I can imagine a
yeah,
hard
sometimes I don't
right-wing
really know.
government
Maybe it,
saying no. But yeah.
mm,
But you're a pawn in this. You've got to do what they say because they're the ones that pay you the money.
mm, yeah, I mean, actually, nobody really controls what I do in the classes. So I mean, mm, it would just when it comes to those exams, I have to fit people into that so that they have a chance to somehow pass it or not. But yeah.
So are you the only teacher doing this, or are there other teachers?
No, there are other teachers as well.
Right. So are your results, when I say results, the number of people who don't get it, etc., are they similar across other classes and other teachers? Or is it just you that's totally
Yeah, it's the
incompetent?
same. No, it's the same. And like most, like my colleagues, they, or everybody has like a quota of
Yeah, yeah.
70% of people failing.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah, yeah. And if they fail, they just have to go out and they're just unlikely to get anything better than a cleaning job.
yeah, it's a bit strange because okay, if you don't have this certificate, you don't get a job. Okay, maybe a cleaning job, but people are not obliged to do cleaning jobs. So not yet, maybe in the future. I mean, as I told you, in Denmark, they already do this like that. But then if you don't pass the exam, you will just have to do another course. But it happens that people like do this course like 2, 3, 4 times, but then they don't pass the exam either. So that shows somehow that it's not working, you know. So and on the other hand, I mean, I don't really care about that fact, but it costs a lot of money. So I don't really understand why people don't get the idea of changing the system to make it maybe a bit more
Yeah,
practicable.
successful. Yeah, yeah. The money is government money, presumably. The people themselves are not
Yeah,
having to pay money.
yeah,
Mm. So if you got a bit, how can I put it, uh, hard line and determined, and when these people turn up on the very, very first day of their course, you said to them, every day you come, you will greet me in German, and every day you leave, you will say goodbye in German. And you made them do that, like 2 words, I guess we're talking about to start with. Would they get it? Even if they didn't know what the word meant, would they be able to mimic the sound of the word? I mean,
yeah,
good,
I
Guten
think so.
Morgen, it comes to my memory. See, it's not just the words, is it? It's also the way you say it. You say it from a different part of the throat. When you
Yeah.
talk German, you're back in your throat, back here somewhere. Yeah, and of
Yeah,
course, if
I
they're
mean,
not like that in their native language, that's going to be quite difficult for them,
yeah,
perhaps.
but
Yeah.
that's the things you begin with. I mean, you train all. I mean, I really understand. I explain what is the trick to pronounce it in that way. What is
Oh,
the
yeah,
exercise
yeah.
you can do at home and so on. It's like, yeah. Um, yeah, I guess it just has to do with um, mm, Mondays and Tuesdays. I work like for 8 hours, and there's maybe a break of half an hour, and it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And then I think after those 8 hours, maybe like I will evaluate things or judge things in a different way than if it's just 4 hours, you know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah. I get
it
that.
has to do more with 8 hours of teaching not really being very healthy for
No, a lot of
my
stress too.
body and for my
Yeah.
mind. Yeah.
And it
So
occurs to me that
actually,
you get.
I guess I will.
Go on.
Hmm?
It occurs to me that
Yeah, I think
okay, it occurs to me that you're not getting very much satisfaction from this job. It's very, very satisfaction deprived kind of job.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I do have a good contact with my pupils, with my students. Um, I enjoy it as well, but when it comes to the subject that I have to teach, it's not really very rewarding. But I think what I'm going to do is I will reduce my working hours. So I won't work 8 hours anymore. And if it's like 4 hours a day, then I think I won't really feel that stressed
Yep,
and
yep,
I
yep.
won't start to think too much about it anyway. So,
Mm.
I
So if you
mean,
do 8 hours, is that going to be
mm,
with one class the whole time, or will you have two classes?
no, it's two different
Right. Yeah.
classes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So when you say you have a good relationship with your students, so you talk
Mm.
with them a lot. Do you talk with them in German, or do you talk with them in their own language, whatever that is? I guess there would be multiple languages, would there?
We talk in German, and I guess it's not that difficult for them to understand me, but it's difficult for them to speak or to write.
To do it back,
Like
yeah, yeah.
reading and understanding is not such, I mean, it's more passive. That's not the problem, but speaking, which is like most important, is difficult.
Mm.
I can understand that. I mean, it's not the easiest language anyway.
Yeah. So if you're talking to them in German and they can understand you,
Hmm.
what are they responding with? What language are they responding with?
Yeah, sometimes I mean, some of the Ukrainians figured out that I understand Russian, so some of them speak in Russian to me.
Okay, yeah. Mm.
That's an interesting way to bypass speaking to you in German.
Yeah.
So is there an average age? Are they young or middle-aged or what? What would be, or a
It's
mixture?
like from uh, 18-year-old to 70. So
Oh,
it's like
okay. You got the whole range. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm. And do you find different motivation from between the younger and the older ones?
mm, no, there is like
Yeah,
motivated people or not motivated people in all
in all ages. Yeah, yeah.
years.
Mm. So if you um, recognize from what you've already done in the past and so on that if you cut it down to 4 hours a day, then it'll be a lot easier. It'll be less physically draining
Yeah.
on you to do it like that.
Mm.
Can you get that there is job satisfaction to be had, not in the outcome from the students, but
Yeah.
in what
Yeah.
you put into it? Yeah.
Yeah, or in the interaction with the people also.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the part that I really like because um, I I would say, I mean, that's also a belief, but in the past, I would have said that I'm rather an introverted person, or let's say the character Leonard is
Yeah, I get it.
not
Yeah.
a person who meets a lot of people all the time. And what is really nice about the job is that people are very different. I mean, there are different ages, different backgrounds, different occupations, different preferences, and so on. But I mean, I spent like every day with them, and I couldn't say that there is any of the students that I would dislike. You know, I
Right.
mean, I can
Excellent. Yeah.
see the nice parts of everybody. Like maybe in the beginning you think, are we going to be are we going to have a good contact? But then it's nice to see that with all of the people, I can have a very nice interaction.
Mm.
So
Yeah, that would be satisfying. Yeah.
yeah, that's a part which I find satisfying. And I guess, yeah, it's rather about 8 hours of working, you know, because then it's a lot of energy that you spend on it. And then maybe you're more inclined to ask, like, yeah, but for what?
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
So I
I mean,
presume you don't have to put a lot of preparation into what you're going to do. You're not required to have a
mm,
plan or anything.
no, I actually never prepare my lessons. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. There would be
um,
little point there.
I'm doing that for 10 years now, and then I know
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
tricks.
yeah. Mm.
And then also sometimes when you prepare things and you put a lot of effort into that, then people find it boring, or it doesn't fit to the atmosphere
Of
of that
course, of course.
particular day, or yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The best laid plans of mice and men, eh?
Mhm. Yeah, because I mean, mm, I I find it quite nice not to be really identified with the job. I mean, I don't identify as a teacher or something.
Hmm.
Um, but then if you spend so much time doing that and you spend so much energy on it, it feels like it's not just a job you go to for some hours, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
How have you been, Maya?
Oh, fine. Fine. Um, I don't know. I started somehow um, going with lots of energy, but then in the last week, I mean, there's there's always very much going on. I mean, like lots of stuff. I travel. I have to do this. I have to do that. So there's no peace, no quiet to contemplate. To
Mm.
then I have some 15 minutes left, and I have to catch a plane after that. But somehow I noticed first that I conveniently forget what you tell us to do here, for example.
Mm.
Like this thing or not.
Mm.
you told this today again, and I remember you saying this before, but I completely forgot to do it, for example. And
Sure.
there's
Yeah.
one more thing that I don't remember what was
Yeah.
now, because I know I have it written down and it's upstairs in my room, but I don't know what it is. Another
Yeah.
trick
Yeah.
you gave us.
Yeah.
So I see this is so conveniently forgetting to do things that I might do anywhere and at any time.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is one
Yeah.
thing. And the other thing, I was plagued by doubt one afternoon. I was like, oh, in the group, oh, what bullshit am I talking? I'm lying. I'm lying to me. I'm lying to other people. I'm taking everybody's time. What am I talking about? What is this about? So it was one afternoon, and then I recognized it as a doubt, and I don't remember it being there in the morning.
Mm, mm,
So I
yeah.
just
Just
went
you
through
just
it, and
you saw it. Yeah. 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 It. One thing that comes to mind is, well, two things, and probably more, but two. But okay, the first thing. Look, uh, it's an analogy that I use. That it's like each meeting, each time we talk, I'm gonna throw a whole handful of seeds into the garden that we call you, and some will sprout and some won't. But, it doesn't matter because next time we get back, I've got a handful of pretty much the same seeds, and I'll throw them again. Just so it's a case of whichever one sticks, whichever one sprouts, great. And the ones that don't, they'll keep showing themselves. This is the brilliant thing, and whatever we need to look at, we'll keep coming back until it's done.
yeah. And what I do see coming back is this relaxed attitude that you're talking about. I'm not judging myself. I just say, okay, oh, if how funny I forget things.
Yes, yeah,
How funny I've forgotten, but it's just funny. Maybe I'll remember it today and tomorrow, and who knows? Or the other thing that's written down upstairs.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's interesting, isn't it?
I'm much more easy on myself.
Yeah. Well, what's the point? Did you forget something on purpose? Of course not. So,
No.
it's how can you? Why would you? Yeah. I mean, my memory is so bad, and I'm sure it's associated with this, but maybe it's not. Maybe I've got advanced dementia as well. I don't know, but um, I've got a friend who keeps saying, "You've got to fix your memory. You've got to do something about it." And he even jokes. When I saw him today, he said, "I need to get you a memory card that you can slot in somewhere." So it's a big joke. But I was thinking about it, and you know what? I don't care. I'm not. I don't have the slightest bit of concern about the fact that I have trouble remembering things.
But uh, Angelo Di Lulo, he mentions so many times, he's a young guy. He mentions so many times that his memory is awful since the awakening, especially.
Mm,
Because somehow, well, I don't know what's in his head, but somehow he doesn't pay attention to things the same way people normally do. So he
yes.
doesn't remember them.
Yeah. Yeah. I suspect that
He
memory
all the time.
involves there's an active involvement with thought to make a memory, and that's
Mm.
probably why it doesn't happen, I guess, because that's right. It's not a case of being unable to recall something. It's a case of it never got filed away in the first place because I wasn't
Yes,
paying
yes.
attention or I saw it as whatever. Yeah. I find it somewhat amusing, but I also feel a little sad that I see people taking it so seriously. Um, they feel like, well, I better go to the doctor and get checked out because there must be something wrong with my brain if I'm not remembering.
Well, being a carer for two persons with dementia, I have no concerns for you. I
Okay,
know how
thank
it
you.
looks like, and
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's an odd one.
Yeah. So, actually, quiet, just noticing things like this. And I'm really also, yeah, I'm a bit triggered by this. My daughter would say, Show America,
Yep.
the finale of the Show America. We all are because it affects us all.
Yeah. Well, see, it's again, it's that meme of it's not about what comes up, but rather what triggers it. Again, it gives us this thing, so we can easily get lost in stories about what might happen if the election goes this way or that way, you know? But really, it's about not that story, because it is a story at the moment. We're not going to feel any effects from it for some time if we do, but it's about what prompted the concern. What is underneath that story that causes us to go, like that. So, I mean,
Mm.
eventually we'll get to the attitude that Ray's got where we'll go, well, no point, let's just wait and see what happens. I could have another 24 hours of bliss before I find out the results.
Mm. But I do remember when I see myself triggered, I do remember to see myself triggered and to ask what's triggering it. I don't get the answer.
No,
Okay,
that's fine. That's
but
fine.
I
Yeah, asking's a thing.
also
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, I also don't. Well, no answer, no answer. It will be the next time.
Mm. Yeah,
I
just
think.
that is amazingly powerful to simply see that it's happening.
Mm, so I'll have to go. Thanks for today. See you on Saturday.
Okay. Have a good flight. Mm.
Thanks. Bye bye.
If there is such a thing.
So full disclosure, my sister's been texting me, and my sense of equanimity is a bit shaken. I don't think I haven't been paying attention, and now I don't know. It's not looking good. But yeah, that's. I just felt like I had to admit that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's interesting and good, isn't it? You know, so you were feeling fairly relaxed and equanimous about it until that text arrived, and then that somehow triggered an involvement.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's quite a bit of ignorance with my equanimity in that it was a bit like I don't need to know what's going on for right now because I can't do anything about it, which is still true. But now that that information has been like,
Yeah,
has
yeah.
presented itself to me, I'm like, oh, well, now I do know what's going on, and
Uh,
I do find it mildly troubling.
yeah,
But
yeah. It's still too early to call disaster, isn't it?
I mean, it seems like it's getting pretty close to the time where we can call disaster, which I think is why maybe I'm starting to rev up. But
Well, it's only
But
about an hour and a half ago
again,
that
a lot of this
California
is,
closed
reading
there.
through somebody else's analysis.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I'll say it was only an hour and a
Yeah.
half ago that Californian polls closed,
Okay. Well,
and there's kind of 50 electoral seats up for grabs over there, just in one state. So who knows? Yeah.
yeah.
It's not like
Well,
it's a linear thing, isn't it? It's not like first past the post.
yeah. Yeah. So that's the thing. I'm actually very ignorant about a lot of this stuff, but the way I receive it is through like somebody else's analysis. And if somebody else is worried, and a lot of people are worried apparently,
Yeah,
it does make me worry. But
yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah,
try to keep it together. And of course, we don't want this to turn
yeah,
into a session of fretting or what have you. But
yeah, sure, yeah. So here's an interesting concept
with
to play with, that even if you get yourself in a state over this, that equanimity and relaxation that you were feeling, it still exists. It is still there, just underneath all of that stuff. So it's not like you have to re-establish it. You just have to sweep the debris away so that you can see it. Is that a bit too conceptual?
yeah, I mean, I think that I no, I get the sense that is true. What I'm kind of experiencing now is very much like I had a real expectation that things were going to go better than everyone expected, and that's definitely not the case.
Was that an expectation or a hope?
So I feel I think it was an expectation and a
Okay.
hope, which
Yeah, yeah.
I
A
it
hopeful
was a
expectation.
hope that was also an expectation.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly. An expectation that I found pleasing and comforting to me, and so I guess I just believed it.
yeah,
And
yeah, of
now it
course.
is not. I've been introduced to the probable situation that is not the case, and I am finding it
Uh,
alarming.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, I'd wind it back to just
But
possible, not probable.
that's fine. Really,
Yeah.
the reason I'm bringing it up is you can't hold me up as an example of equanimity because that is changing in real time, as you say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like I have to be honest. It's just like,
Yeah, 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 good. And it's good to be honest with
these
yourself as
things are
well.
always in flux.
Okay, and we don't have
Yeah.
to be honest
Yeah.
because that suggests that there's a good and bad thing about it, right? There is value about being honest with yourself. And so one of those really interesting points that just happened for you was the transition from one state into another, right? You were feeling one thing, you got a text, and by the end of the text you were feeling something else. There's a transition that happened. And
Yeah.
how, or rather what actually also went on? What were the stories, most likely, way to put it? What were the stories that went on that actually created the transition or were involved with the transition? Right?
Yeah. Um, no, I mean, I think I like to think I was pretty aware of all of that
Yep.
as it was happening, but that doesn't make it me not susceptible to it.
Yeah, well,
And
that's all
so I'm
right.
just
That's
like,
okay. You don't
yeah,
have to be not susceptible.
yeah,
The fact that you were susceptible is where the value is
mm,
in using that as the portal, right, into. So is there a story there somewhere in amongst all that soup, if you like? Is there a story there that says maybe one day I won't be susceptible? Maybe I can get to the point where I won't be susceptible. Maybe I'll get to the point where I can remain equanimous regardless of what's going on around me. Was there a story like that anywhere? Or is that too far a reach?
maybe, but it was not really on a, definitely not on a conscious level. Um, this felt a lot more like immediate, just like, oh, this was not what I expected to happen. And a lot of people who I am close with are probably going to be very upset when I see them again tomorrow. Like that was kind of it was just it was more like a sensation of surprise. Um, yeah, no, just mildly alarmed. And then I think when you said eventually we'll all get to the place where Ray is right now, I was like, no, no,
Okay, I
no.
get. Yeah, yeah.
Like I
That's what
felt
sparked that moment of honesty.
yeah, I was worried that I would be misleading people if they were just like, oh man, Ray's so equanimous about all of this. And I just have to be like, I'm no longer that's no longer the case, everybody.
Mm.
You know, these things are in flux with me for sure. Um, and
So,
so
would you call that equanimity that you had before you got the text? Was that, how do I put this? I don't want to put it in a way that suggests something, um, but I kind of, to be blunt, I want to say, was it a genuine equanimity, or was it some kind of pseudo equanimity as a result of denial?
I think it was probably a true equanimity from ignorance.
Okay,
You know?
okay, no, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then and
But see
now
that
I'm
ignorance, that let's not put that word ignorance in give it a moral overtone. Let's say, if I said it's a true equanimity as a result of not knowing, would that be
yeah.
as accurate as saying because of ignorance?
I mean, it definitely sounds more charitable, but I
Well,
think it's essentially the same thing. I think it's still accurate for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so that minuses the moral overtone of ignorance. That's all. Yeah.
Mm,
Okay. Well, you know what? See, the thing is, you might even have a story in the background that says that is that. Oh, how can I put it? That there's something not quite good about that kind of ignorance. But the reality is that fully awake, you will easily recognize that not knowing is a default state. It's a state that you're going to be in a lot of the time. But it's not
yeah.
a case of anything missing. And so our language says not knowing is like knowing is good and knowing is missing. So we're not knowing. Well, that's just not the way it actually is. You know, we really don't know anything. We think we do, but they're only thoughts. So it's really a case of recognizing a reality to say
Right.
not knowing. It's interesting. The 10th feta
In
is,
this case, not knowing definitely felt better.
yeah, 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 of course. So the 10th feta, the very last of the fetters, the very pinnacle of that pyramid of the things, the 10th feta is that the feta of not knowing. They call it ignorance. That the Buddhists called it ignorance. It went a lot translated into ignorance in English, but nevertheless, it's really a case of not knowing. But it's a totally different not knowing than missing something.
Yeah. Some importance for something, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I kind of got a bit lost in trying to explain that one. It ran out, but yeah. So it is a
I think
penultimate state of not knowing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I get that. And I mean, I think there's a there's a certain humility in it. I appreciate. Yeah, I think really the thing that I worry about to some degree, which I've expressed to you even just now, is like I just don't want to be I'm on the lookout for potentially bypassing by being, you know
Mm.
what I mean?
Yep,
I'm
yep.
like, oh, I'm not worried at all because I don't know, like, how can anyone know anything? Which I really do. I mean,
That is
that is,
bypassing. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And the way you recognize that is it's the result of a logical conclusion. So if you can change your feelings as a result of a logical conclusion, you've got there by bypassing. Now
hmm
it's not to say that that's wrong, but it is a short-term fix, and it does ignore a whole lot of stuff that was going on.
yeah,
But if it happens, it happens.
correct, yeah.
So
I
don't
can't
don't.
control whether I'm bypassing or not.
That's right. Yeah, don't
Yeah,
beat yourself up if you find yourself doing it, but recognize
yeah,
that that is a portal for you to look through into what's actually going on. So we're
yeah,
taught to bypass. Our whole society, our culture teaches us to bypass. That's what that's what all the religions do. They bypass. Have faith, they say. Right? If you have faith, then everything will be good. And you feel good because of that. You go, oh yeah, I must have faith because I feel good. And then you got this circular thing going. I feel good because I got faith, and I've got faith because I feel good. And so you've bypassed yourself into a very fragile feeling good. But it doesn't take much to knock the legs out from under that. That's the thing. So a lot of people who get to this place through non-duality, right? It's a bit like those religions. It's a case of they just keep on telling you that there's a state there that you can achieve where you are consciousness or awareness or whatever, and if you get there, you'll find yourself in heaven for a while, but it lasts about as long as the magic mushrooms do. They fade. So it's fragile.
yeah,
That's all. So what we're doing here is working. We're not trying to change beliefs. We're working at why the beliefs are there, what's underneath them.
right.
It's much more solid. When
Um,
you get there, it's not going to be fragile.
that's an int so that leads me in a slightly different direction. But so do you feel like there is any utility to psychedelics, or do you feel, I mean, I'm sure it's different for everybody, but in the right circumstances, is that something you have an opinion on at
Yep,
all?
yep, I have. Yeah, I'm quite actively in favour of the right circumstances and the right amount and all that. So, and the purpose of doing it. So if you're doing it with a spiritual purpose, and I say spiritual in a loose term, but if you're doing it with that in mind, you're looking to discover something. If you're doing it as a recreational drug just to get high, then you're not going to get much out of it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll get high for
Okay.
sure, but once it wears off, you're back to where you started from. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with
Yeah.
a guide is good value. With a guide and just the right amount, just that you just, especially with psilocybin, the smallest amount will have a huge effect. Yeah. But I haven't had the opportunity to do that for a long time now, and I did about, oh God, 50 years ago. I did a lot of that stuff, and oh, magic mushrooms taste horrible. And I remember chewing some, and they were so horrible I spat them out. But I still got off my face for about 12 hours. And so you don't need much to get going for sure. But
Mm.
what that does is it takes you into that right brain thing, and if you're doing it with not you're not overdone it, if you're doing it the right amount, you will start to see the possibility of viewing the world from a different perspective. Uh,
Yeah.
I had one experience. I was actually
Good to
in
know.
Bali.
Yeah. No, I
Going,
Mhm.
so have you?
I was just gonna say it's good to know because it's something that I've thought about. But sorry, you were talking about Bali.
Oh, I was just going to tell you an anecdotal story about in Bali up in the hills, and there was this beautiful little stream running down the hill, and floating down in the middle of this stream was a turd, a big turd. And when I saw that, I just went, "There is God. Look at it. God is there floating down that stream." It was just, and I wasn't just playing. I was serious. It was really God manifest as a human turd floating down that stream. I'm laughing, but I'm laughing not at how ridiculous it is. I'm laughing at just how right it is, you know? It's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, nothing is different. We're no matter what, it's all of equal or no value, and so on and so on. Yeah.
All I can kind of imagine is that if anybody was like watching you have that experience, they'd just be like, I need to have some of whatever he's having. Like that's
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that was so long ago now. Yeah. So, yeah, but I don't, I think it's very controlled circumstances for this reason. Yeah.
I also had this kind of experiences like in nature when you take mushrooms and you don't feel a separation anymore.
Mm.
But the last time I took mushrooms, I noticed that the effect was like overthinking and identification with thought. So I felt like, oh, no, no, I don't want to go back there.
Mm.
And then it was quite unpleasant.
Mm.
But yeah, I decided like, no, that's not what I want to
Mm.
do again. I mean, it doesn't mean that the next time it would have the same effects, but I had this one experience in Java at the I was without taking anything, and I had like 3 or 4 hours of not really having any control thought and just watching the sunset and the clouds. And at least in my memory, that is like much more intense than any magic mushroom trip.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And same thing. You were probably seeing the world from your right brain perspective, which is that almost overwhelming, feel good, emotional thing. Yeah.
yeah, because the mushroom trip has like some physical
Oh, for sure.
things
Yeah.
with it that are not that pleasant, I think. I mean,
Yeah. The ending of
not
it
all.
was never good at the end, coming down. Yeah. Yeah. And there is and I mean, I think we can learn it as well, but it will happen spontaneously where there is that place where we can our focus just hits something, and it's like that something just enters us and explodes. It takes over, and it becomes just such a big thing, and the only response you can get to it is, "Oh wow, wow, wow!" You can't do anything else, and that doesn't require drugs. That can happen with anything if we. It's really a case of thoughts getting out of the road and having almost a physical connection with whatever it is. So you'll hear people say not just that it wasn't separate for me, but they'll say I was it and it was me. It's like that's a bit different to not separate.
Yeah, it's something like, well, mindfulness flash or something that can
Yeah.
be, but it can be very extended as well. I mean, sometimes it's very short, but it could also last some hours.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Well, some people have a honeymoon period that lasts for a long time. And they can be having lots of that kind of experience in that. Yeah.
But I think the nice thing is that I can't produce it. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
something,
Yeah, there's
it
no
just
switch you can turn on.
happens,
Yeah.
but that makes it like really a nice surprise, like wow, a present or something like that.
Yeah, I was listening to a YouTube video actually yesterday about um, I would say are deeply realized, and they said that they tried taking I can't remember what it was. It was some kind of psychedelic. I think it was either DMT or mushrooms, and they said it had almost no effect on them. They said
Mm.
that they believe that has to do probably with the realization, and as the ego falls away, there's nothing to bring you to because
Yeah,
you're already there.
could be. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't
So
had any of
just
those since I woke up, so I would be interested to see what happened, but circumstances hasn't presented itself yet.
it's
We'll
curious.
see.
I actually did it before when I was much younger. It would bring me to the state of non-separation, and then when I did it, I actually did it like 4 months ago. It brought me to emotions I was avoiding.
Ah,
Because I was
okay,
going
yes,
through, it was not a happy one. It was not a happy trip. It was more of a, hey, this is all the stuff you've been avoiding to feel.
right,
And
right.
so lots of lo- lots of emotions that I had been not wanting, and very somatic too, because it's like, hey, you have to feel this
Yeah,
physically,
yeah, yeah,
and it was just very interesting. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. That is
it's not always
interesting.
happy trips.
Yeah, yeah, right. So that exposure to all of that stuff, it revealed stuff to you. That was good. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But because of the variability and everybody being different and all sorts of things, I certainly I wouldn't recommend you go and just do that. So if you do very controlled circumstances, I think's the advice. Do it with a guide rather than by yourself. And if you can do it with a guide that's familiar with this kind of stuff, then that's even better. So and you can go from one extreme where you just have a minder that's going to stop you doing something stupid and getting into trouble, through to a guide that knows this kind of non-duality stuff, and so can focus you in the right direction. Yeah.
Vince, I think you have to take like 3 tabs of acid for the Saturday meeting. You said the circumstances never have arisen, but I feel like they.
I was thinking we were doing pretty well without the acid.
Well, I want to see the delta. I want to see what the difference is.
Oh yeah, right.
You know,
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
I feel like we'll probably still be doing very well even with the acid. So
Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
We would learn something.
Yeah, well, one of the things that happens when you take those kind of things, and also here's another interesting one. If you ever got up on the stage with a hypnotist, right? It's like the same kind of thing happens. You give yourself permission to not be yourself. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But you give yourself permission to be spontaneous, to be authentic, to be, whatever, and you just once you give yourself permission, you just everything's there. The whole being is in it, kind of thing. So that giving yourself permission is something you can do anyway. And so most of us are brought up to kind of, I guess, be a little bit afraid of what's in our subconscious mind, what's down there, deep down. And so we're always a little bit wary of what might come up if we were just to let go. And I know for some people, that's a huge thing. Right, that some people can't let themselves wake up simply because they're afraid of what will happen. Things, weird stories happen, like I'll stop loving my family and things like that. Well, it's not the way it is, but that's a fear that a lot of people have. So that giving yourself permission to be spontaneous is not so easy to do, but you can do it if you think of it in that terms. You can find yourself saying things and doing things that are not normal for you at all.
I should probably go. I need to get some sleep. But
Okay, yeah. Well, good
Yeah,
to
I got
see
to do
you.
the same.
All right. Well, maybe
Got,
we've all had a go, and so we'll wind up, eh? We'll have an early night today. Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
sounds
Good to
good.
see you. Good to see you, George. Everybody else, good to see you too. Good to not see you if you got your camera turned off. Uh, see you later.
All right.
Thank you
See you,
much.
Vince. Thanks for
Good
your
night,
time.
everyone. Yeah.
Thank